Today we watch the vampire counts of Sylvania surround the Great Forest in rot. And today we watch the Wood Elves defend it. Vampire Count necromancers from Sylvania have moved into the ruins of Van Haldenschloss, and nearby waystalkers have noticed. The undead use the festering necromantic power of this old town to feed their Wither Blight curse, killing trees during autumn and using their infernal rot to raise the dead. Ghouls and zombies spring from the autumnal ground. The Waywatchers of the Great Forest rally their fellow lithe troops to interrupt this dark ritual, and they also gain the aid of the greatest forest spirit there is. Will the hailstorm of elven arrows repel the noxious necromancy? Or will the horrors summoned by the vampiric counts succeed in their macabre dance across this battlefield? Will the hordes of the mindless stumble and crumble their way through the fragile elven ranks? Grab your favorite drink and some cozy slippers and let's find out. The armies have taken to the battlefield. Let's take a look at each unit briefly and see who risks their life this day. 5 Glade Guard have arrived with Swift Shiver Shards and a magical standard that gives them quick shot. Next to them are 5 Wild Riders equipped with shields. 10 Eternal Guard with shields, and their champion has a Spell Eater axe to protect them from spells. Riding astride the Great Forest Dragon is our Glade Lord. He carries a great weapon and shield. He's the general of this army. He has a Talisman of Protection which gives him ward saves, and he has an Annoyance of Netlings, which are magic sprites that help him if he gets in a challenge. 10 Wildwood Rangers, whose experience in the horrifying Wildwood makes them all the more invigorated to fight horrifying foes. Then there is the Spellsinger, who is a level 2 wizard of battle magic. A traveling troop of 11 Deepwood Scouts, also equipped with Swift Shiver Shards, allowing them to shoot twice each. And a troop of 5 Waywatchers, also equipped with Swift Shiver Shards. They're led, however, by a Waystalker, who uses a Resplendence of Luminescence to give them all magical attacks, and also as Yendi's Bane, so that he can risk his own life to make sure his arrows hit. Staring into the eyes of these elves are 4 Bat Swarms and 3 Spirit Hosts, who are ethereal and hard to hit. We also have 20 Skeleton Warriors. They wave a banner of Drakenhof, which improves their regenerative abilities, and they also have a Wight Lord, who has a great weapon, a shield, and Hellish Vigour, which gives reserve moves. He also has the Accursed Armour, which not only protects him, but improves his toughness on his very hide. Standing behind the skeletons is a Tomb Banshee, who has a scream that even dragons should fear. Next to all those skeletons is 21 good old-fashioned zombies, followed by 10 Crypt Ghouls, and their Necromantic Acolyte, who is a level 1 wizard of dark magic, and whose Sceptre of Noirot allows for resurrecting the dead. This next unit is the absolute silver bullet of the Vampire Count army. 6 Blood Knights with full plate armor, a Kastellan, a Standard Bearer, and they're accompanied by a Vampire Thrall, who is the general of this army. He's a level 1 wizard of Necromancy, of course, and he wears the Flayed Hauberk for strong armor and ward saves. Last but not least, hiding behind the trees is 5 Dire Wolves and 3 Fell Bats. Now, let's zoom out and look at some buildings on the battlefield, because our armies are fighting for control over key buildings in Van Haldenschloss. There are 3 buildings, and each one is worth 100 victory points if they are garrisoned. The larger the building, the larger the unit that can garrison it. We're also using some of the rules from Baggage Train Scenario, which is featured in the Old World Matched Play Guide. Units can choose to either garrison a building, or if it's one of the enemy's buildings, then they can burn it down for even more victory points. Turn 1, and the undead army will go first. Before their turn, the Glade Lord fires his Arrow of Kornos. The magical green arrow arcs across the field and finds the eye socket of the opposing Vampire Thrall. Fortunately for him, he has 2 eyes. That same Vampire Thrall then chants up the magical words to Van Hall's Dance Macabre. The nearby zombies are filled with magical energy. The undead jerk forwards on the attack with tireless and unnatural speed. The Vampire Thrall then chants in unison with the Necromantic Acolyte nearby, and they cast the Invocation of Nahak. The Necromancer intones the dread syllables handed down from Nagash himself. breathing unlife into the lifeless cadavers strewn across the battlefield. As you can see here, more zombies are raised from the dead. The army then begins its undead march. First, the wolves spring from the forests, navigating the dangerous bows without injury. Bats fly past them, bearing down on archers on the opposite side of the hill. Blood Knights bound forward with ghouls in tow. Dance Macabre allows the zombies to crawl forward with surprising speed, the skeletons at their side and the wailing Banshee behind them. The spirit hosts also move up, while the bat swarms take cover behind their supply building. The Vampire Count's reserve moves allow their skeletons, dogs, and ghouls all to move again. And at the end of the Vampire Count's turn, this is what the battlefield looks like. Thanks to their invocations of Dance Macabre, they've made fantastic progress closing the gap on the Wood Elves in the distance. Turn 1 for Wood Elves. The Glade Guard, who are slightly off camera, move into shooting position. The Eternal Guard move in anticipation of impending charges. The Wildwood Rangers decide to aid their Eternal Guard brethren off to the right, and so they move to them by performing a 90-degree turn in place and then moving. The Spellsinger stays nearby, keeping an eye on potential victims for her long-range Fireball spell. She then attempts to cast Arcane Urgency, but fails. The Deepwood Scouts see an entire horizon of enemies to shoot at, and decide to garrison their own supply building, to make shooting a little easier, and a little safer. The Way Watchers move backward on their heels as they loose a volley of arrows at the spirit hosts that are charging toward them. Those spirit hosts are ethereal and impervious to any physical attacks, but these Way Watchers have a resplendence of luminescence, a blessing from the forest they've left behind, so their magical attacks can hurt them. Each elf shoots twice for a total of 12 shots. The Waystalker uses Asyendi's Bane to correct an errant arrow to ensure both of his shots wound, and 2 arrows from the other elves cause wounds, for a total of 4 wounds on the spirits. The sounds of arrows flying through the air also issues from the nearby building, where the Deepwood Scouts send a volley of 22 arrows arcing through the air and into the skeletons. Only 3 hit. The Deepwood Scouts are hampered by moving and shooting and by long range. Of the 3 arrows that hit, 1 penetrates armor and kills a skeleton. Only a few yards away, the Spellsinger snaps her fingers, and the Battle Mage summons forth a roiling ball of magical flame. She hurls it at the distant spirit hosts. She overcomes the Fates themselves, who try to dispel the spell, and it is a humongous fireball, hitting the spirit hosts 11 times. 6 of those hits wound the spirit hosts. The spirit hosts are injured. On the opposite side of the field, we see the Glade Guard shooting arrows into the bats who charge from the opposite side of the hill. They launch 10 shots. 6 miss, 1 fails to penetrate their tough hide, 1 is regenerated, leaving 2 wounds and a bat dies. On that same hill, the Vampiric Direwolves and Frenzied Wild Riders smack into each other with full impact. The Wild Riders hit 15 times and only 4 miss, and the wolves drop in an instant under the hooves of the overrunning cavalry. The riders are too frenzied to restrain their own pursuit, but they can pivot to face the fell bats. Nearby, battle rages between the Glade Lord's dragon and the Blood Knights. The Glade Lord has been challenged by a champion and has no choice but to accept. The Glade Lord, excited for battle, completely whiffs all of his attack, and the dragon's maw snaps at the vampire and completely misses. His claws then attack 5 times, and only 2 find their mark. That slays the vampire champion, but this is merely seen as a stalemate by the vampires, who are encouraged by their battle standard. Battle will continue next turn. Speaking of which, the vampire counts begin turn 2. The Blood Knight slain by the dragon just seconds ago stands back up and joins combat. Zombies crawl from the dirt and join the zombie horde. The skeleton shot dead by elves stand back up. These resurrections are due to the Necromancer Acolyte, who raises the Blood Knight, the Vampire Thrall, who raises the zombie, and the Necromancer also resurrected the skeleton. Invocations of Nehek, baby. The Fellbats then declare a charge into the Glade Guard, slightly off camera, sorry about that, and the Glade Guard choose to hold rather than fire and flee, afraid that they may be run down if they fire and flee. The Necromancer and his ghouls back up, while the zombies also lurch backward just a step. The skeletons reform to face battle to the east, and the Banshee moves behind the zombies. And the Necromancer commands his ghouls to make way for his line of sight on the Wild Riders. The bat swarm then flies from around the building up to the Waystalkers. The remaining spirit host glides across the field to join them. Across the battlefield, all can hear the Necromancer beginning to chant. At his bidding, a bolt of black lightning tears from the heavens and stabs at the earth. 3 Wild Riders are nearly hit. One is genuinely hit, but saved by his talismanic tattoos. The undead then take their reserve moves. The skeletons shamble forward, the spirit host accomplishes his pincer movement on the Waystalkers, and the ghouls reassemble behind the building. On the hilly outskirts of town, Glade Guard and Fellbats fight sword against wing. The bats attack 4 times. Only one attack kills a defenseless Glade Guard, though. Glade Guards swing back and score a lucky wound of their own, and spurred on by their standard, their courage soars, and the bats, who lost momentum of combat, begin to crumble, leaving them with only 1 wounded Fellbat. The Glade Guard consider following the bats, who give ground and decide better of it, they reform instead. Beyond the hill, the Glade Guard see the whirlwind melee in progress between the dragon and the Blood Knights. The Blood Knights are composed entirely of champions, and one of them challenges the Glade Lord, who cannot refuse. The Glade Lord swings first with his greatsword, 4 attacks. 2 get stuck in the toughness of his enemies and 1 into their armor. But with that 1 wound that gets through, he slays his champion. However, since this was a challenge, not he nor his dragon can attack the rest of the unit. The Blood Knights are encouraged by their standard bearer and the close order, and they technically win combat, so the Lord and his dragon give ground. The Blood Knights choose not to follow. Now on to the Wood Elves' turn. Can they turn back the onslaught? The Wild Riders charge into the 1 remaining Fellbat, who is hiding sneakily entirely off camera. The Great Dragon carries his Royal Rider over the heads of his horrifying foes, caring not for the enemies sighted, and lands on the zombies' flank. Meanwhile, the Eternal Guard reform to face the impending Blood Knights, and the Wildwood Rangers turn in place 90 degrees again in order to move toward the skeletons. The Spellsinger then fails to channel enough magic for an arcane urgency spell, again. Shaking her head in disappointment at her own magical fingertips, she moves into casting range on the threatening Blood Knights. Then the archers of the Great Forest begin shooting. The Glade Guard loose 6 arrows. Their target gets some cover from the remaining Fellbat, and the hopeless shots do nothing. The Spellsinger then scores a perfect invocation, channeling the winds into a mighty fireball. It accounts only for 6 hits, which all fail to penetrate the Blood Knight's armor. The 11 Deepwood scouts, garrisoned within their building, shoot from protection. They have the skeletons in their sights. 22 arrows are shot, 11 miss, 6 hit too soft to do any damage, 3 are saved by either armor or regeneration, and 2 skeletons drop dead. At the trees behind them, the Waystalkers attempt to shoot down the ethereal spirit host with their magical arrows. Waystalker shoots twice, using his bow as Yendi's Bane to guide an arrow. The bow fails him and siphons from his life instead, leaving him wounded. His remaining shot hits too soft to wound. His Waywatcher brethren loose 10 arrows. 4 of them miss, 3 hit too softly to wound, and the spirit host is wounded 3 times, but one of those wounds magically closes up and regenerates. So he lives. A quarter mile away, on the opposite end of battle, 1 remaining Fellbat disappears beneath 15 frenzied attacks from Wild Riders. Those Wild Riders are too frenzied to restrain, but not too frenzied to reform after pursuing. They're eager to get back into the hunt. That passes control back to the vampires, who immediately cast spells. The vampire Thrall, who rides among the Blood Knights, casts Dance Macabre onto themselves, giving them unnatural speed. The Necromancer resurrects 1 Blood Knight and 2 skeletons with his Sceptre of Noirot. Then 3 more zombies lurch to life. They've been resurrected by the vampire Thrall. The numbers in the undead horde continues to grow. The Blood Knights charge headlong into the Eternal Guard, who grip their spears and let out a cry for Athel Loren. The Bat Swarms and Spirit Host execute the final blow of their pincer movement, and the Waywatchers dare not fire and flee, or they'll surely be cut down from either side. The Banshee then moves closer to the dragon, preparing to wail, and the zombie hordes stagger and stumble to face the dragon. Necromancer and ghouls shelter behind a building, setting up to potentially capture it by end of battle. Skeletons wheel to face the Wildwood Rangers, and chanting begins again from the Necromancer Acolyte, and once again a doom bolt arcs across the sky. A fated dispel fails, and the Wildwood Rangers have no defenses. 3 drop dead. In the background, the Banshee lets loose a feeble cry, which the dragon simply ignores. The vampires then have their reserve moves. Skeletons lurch forward, and ghouls creep around the corner of a nearby building. They ensure to stay safe from the Wild Riders' charge. Blades and wings then whirl among the elves, spirits, and bats. The Waystalker acts first, missing both his attacks. The other 5 Way Watchers attack. 2 of them hit and wound, bringing the spirit down with an eerie scream. 20 attacks from the bats swarm every surface of the elves. They have no shields, no wards, no regen, and they go down kicking and screaming beneath leathery wings. The bats pursue forward. Next, the spears of the Blood Knights and the Eternal Guards collide. The Kastellan and his martial pride declares a challenge, which the Eternal Warden pragmatically declines. The Thrall attacks and whiffs all attacks. The Lances attack 11 times. 3 miss and 3 are stopped by the Guard's toughness. That leaves 5 spear attacks, which perfectly penetrate all armor and shield. 5 elves drop among the leaves on the ground. In the press of battle, the elves return 4 attacks, hitting nothing but fresh air. The undead steeds attack, their hooves sometimes missing and other times beating harmlessly on shields. The Eternal Guard fall back in good order. Vampires demonstrate great leadership, restraining and reforming. Wood Elves have suffered great losses here at Van Heldenschloss. It's time for them to take back control with some big charges. They came here to stop the necromantic transgressions against the forest, and the Necromancer is in sight. The immense dragon ignores the horde of 36 zombies and charges into the Necromancer and his ghouls. The Wild Riders and Eternal Guard both charge the unit of Blood Knights, and the Eternal Guard overcome their fear to do so. The Blood Knights countercharge, and they all collide in a dramatic clash. The Wildwood Rangers nail a long charge into the skeletons, and the intrepid Spellsinger, unbothered by the walls of combat all around her, glides nearer to battle, hoping to bring the Banshee in range of her fireball. Time around her slows, allowing her to cover great distance in the blink of an eye. The Fates fail to dispel her arcane urgency. The Glade Guard adjust their position on the hill. In the Wood Elf garrison, the Deepwood Scouts are ecstatic. 22 shots cut through the air again. 10 hit and wound. 2 wounds are regenerated, and the bat swarms suffer 8 wounds. The Spellweaver snaps her fingers, casting Fireball. Nothing comes from her fingertips but a spark. From the hill to her side, the Glade Guard arc shots over building and melee, landing 8 shots onto zombies. 1 zombie catches a fatal arrow through his frail flesh. Midfield, elven glaives and bony arms collide. Wildwood Rangers, accustomed to a life in the more horrifying boughs of the Great Forest, are excited rather than terrified by the skeletons. They each swing twice and hit twice as hard. 10 swings becomes 8 wounds. 1 is instantly regenerated, bones knitting back together. Skeletons swing back in the press of battle. 6 attacks, 2 hit, and the elves' light armor helps them not. 2 drop dead. Finally, the smiling White Lord swings last with his mighty great weapon and hits nothing but fresh air. The skeleton realizes they're losing and begin to crumble. 2 crumble to dust. It would have been 3, but their banner aids them. The elves follow as the skeletons give ground. The Acolyte demonstrates his evil bravery by challenging the Glade Lord to a challenge. The Glade Lord sweeps his gray hair aside and cleaves the Acolyte in twain. The ghouls smell failure in the air and begin to crumble. Only 7 ghouls remain. They give ground and the dragon pursues. In case you're wondering, our dragon is on a base too small for old world rules. A correctly sized base would end exactly at the tip of his purple tongue, so that's what we use. From just the opposite side of the cozy old Tudor home, a giant clap of combat is issued from where the most powerful vampire counts find themselves sandwiched by elves. The charging Wild Riders connect first. They hit 15 attacks, 8 miss, 3 potentially wound, but only 1 single hunting spear finds its mark beyond the armor and regeneration, slaying 1 vampire count champion. The hooves of the Elvish steeds are ineffective. Only one hits, but too soft to wound. Off to the side, a challenge is fought between the champion of the Eternal Guard and a Blood Knight Kastellan. The Eternal Warden's first attack misses, his second bounces off armor, and his fellow Eternal Guard all attack ineffectively. The Kastellan attacks 3 times and drops the Eternal Warden dead. The remaining vampire spears clang into the Wild Riders and 2 drop. Their 5 horses then attack as well, but all attacks are saved by Wild Rider's armor and talismanic tattoos.
Talismanic tattoo, can it do it again?
Oh, it does it again! Combat resolution is a tie, and battle rages on for the next round. Start of the vampire's turn, and the zombie horde plows into the dragon's flank. The Banshee goes wailing alongside them, and the bat swarms flap over to the building garrisoned by the Deepwood scouts. Now combat continues. The 5 remaining Wildwood Rangers swing their glaives like metal windmills. 10 attacks. 2 miss and 2 hit too soft, but the other 6 drop skeletons. The multiple wound attacks from the glaive cutting through the regenerative abilities of the skeletons. 5 skeletons attack back via press of battle, and 1 kills a Wildwood Ranger. The White Lord swings twice with his great weapon and fells 2 Rangers. But the skeletons crumble again, and the Wildwood Rangers bravely follow up. Alongside them, battle rages loudly. The Glade Lord swings 4 times into the ghouls, killing 4 ghouls. The dragon snaps his serrated maw and rakes his claws, wounding 6 zombies, but 1 is regenerated, stitching his flesh back together. Without press of battle on their side, the zombies attack back only twice, and they miss. The 3 ghouls also miss. A thunderous stomp from the dragon wipes out the remaining ghouls. Having lost battle, 11 more zombies drop into piles of dust. At the great battle of cavalry, the remaining Wild Riders are no longer frenzied and no longer charging, so they swing only 3 times. They tap harmlessly on the Blood Knight armor. 4 Eternal Guard attack. 1 of them strikes true and hard, penetrating armor and regeneration, felling a Blood Knight. The Blood Knights attacks simultaneously with the Wild Rider steeds. The steeds find the same luck as the Eternal Guard, dropping 1 more Blood Knight. The Blood Knights attack with vigor at the Wild Riders 5 times, but the shields and talismanic tattoos of the Riders are effective, allowing 1 Wild Rider to survive. Undead hordes attack, taking out the last Rider. The Blood Knights are barely losing combat, but their curse follows them nonetheless, and 1 more crumbles. The Elves reform rather than following the Blood Knights, and we move to the Elves' turn. The Glade Guard march and pivot, beginning to fear that the Blood Knights may run them down. The Eternal Guard march to safety, unfazed by nearby enemies. The Spellsinger moves while summoning the Winds of Magic for arcane urgency, but fails once again. She needed a 9 and got an 8. She spins to face the bats in the distance, forming a plan for Fireball. We then look at the Deepwood Scouts again, garrisoned within their building. They laser 22 arrows directly into the bat swarms at their doorstep. They lose their nerve, and only 9 arrows hit. 3 of those regenerate, meaning only 6 total wounds. 1 bat swarm drops while the other flutters onward. Wild chanting begins from behind us, and a small fireball forms in the palms of the Spellsinger. However, the vampire Thrall simply counters it. He barely finishes his counter incantation when arrows thud into his group from the Glade Guard. The arrows thud harmlessly into the dirt around them and into the vampire armor. In the combat between the Wildwood Rangers and the skeletons, the Wildwood Rangers swing 4 times and cleave away 3 skeletons, leaving only the White Lord, who swings back and reduces the fight to an intimate 1 versus 1 to the death. It is a wild battle roiling across this field. Behind the 1v1 deathmatch, the dragon is stomping through zombies, the Spellsinger is having her every spell thwarted by bad luck and vampire counter spells, and the Glade Guard are sending a hailstorm of arrows. Let's take a look at the dragon and zombies. Between the royal Glade Lord of the forest and his mighty dragon, there are 10 attacks plus 3 from a stomp. That concludes with 9 wounds, and 1 of them is regenerated by the zombies. The zombies do swing back, but they fail to penetrate the dragon's tough hide. 6 more then crumble under the weight of their losses. They give ground, and the dragon turns as he follows them. The vampire counts take over and begin their invocation of Nehek. His leadership fails him, and nothing is resurrected. He also fails to cast Dance Macabre. He curses under his breath for being too far from the White Lord's banner, which may have allowed him to succeed. He takes out his anger on the Glade Guard, beginning a charge on them. On the other side of the field, the bat swarms charge the garrisoned Deepwood Scouts. The Deepwood Scouts flee the building, and the bats are too close to fire on as they flee. The elves are clumsy in their flight, fleeing only a short distance. The bats garrison the building for themselves. There are now bats in the rafters. The Glade Guard can fire and flee. They launch 8 shots. Only one hits and potentially wounds. The armor bane on that arrow cuts Blood Knight armor. Alas, the Blood Knight regenerates the wound and the archers continue their flight. Undead hooves pound the ground behind them, and then the ground beneath them. The Glade Guard are run down and chopped to pieces. The Blood Knights reform to face the remaining victims. The Banshee moves out of the way and screams a bloody, wailing dirge at the dragon. Once again, the dragon is unfazed. He focuses on the foul lunch before him. 10 attacks issue from the Lord and Dragon, and the zombies are dead before it even stomps. He pursues forward across the battlefield, burning orange eyes turning toward the White Lord. Speaking of which, the White Lord is dodging 2 deadly attacks from the Wildwood Rangers. The Rangers swung twice, missed one, hit his accursed armor toughness with the other, and the White Lord retaliates, cutting the Ranger to the ground. His undead steps pursue forward. Wood Elves now take their turn 5, and the White Lord finds himself charged by Eternal Guard and Dragon. The fear caused by this Lich Lord does not prevent the impending charges. You fought valiantly, White Lord. It's been nice knowing you. The Deepwood Scouts reposition themselves and send desperate shots. Being on the move, shooting twice, and aiming at skirmishers simply can't hit a single shot. The Spellsinger fails to summon a fireball. They are encouraged, however, by the battle next to them, where the Glade Guard lops off the skeletal head of the White Lord. Both elven units restrain and reform. But is this the last turn of the game? For the end of turn dice roll, we employ a celebrity dice roller. In comes Stout the Dog. On a roll of 5 or 6, the game ends. It's a 2, and the battle continues. Undead turn 6. The Thrall resurrects a Blood Knight with his invocation of Nehek, chants up his dance macabre, and the fates fail to dispel it. The Blood Knights are now stronger and faster. The Banshee moves closer to battle, and the Blood Knights march to glory. The Bats spend their time destroying the enemy supply garrison. They have earned their army 250 victory points. It's now the Wood Elves' turn. The Deepwood Scouts charge back into the bat swarms and the flaming building around, regretting abandoning their supplies. These scouts have no melee skills to speak of, and this is a Hail Mary. The Eternal Guard attempt to march away from the impending Blood Knights, but their bravery fails them with the enemies in sight. They cannot move at a marching speed. The Glade Lord navigates his winged steed toward the enemy supply garrison. He needs the Spellsinger to assist with arcane urgency in order to make it there this turn. As usual, she needs to summon a 9 on Winds of Magic, and only gets an 8. The dragon is marooned halfway to the enemy garrison. The Spellsinger moves also. She then channels the winds into a medium-sized fireball, which hits the Blood Knights. Their armor absorbs it entirely, and the fireball is meaningless to them. At the destroyed Elven supply garrison, where fire rages all around them, the Elves strike first due to Elven reflexes, swinging 6 times and dealing 4 wounds. The remaining bat swarm hits 3 times, but 2 of those are ineffective wing fluttering against the Elves. Only 1 elf dies. The bats, losing combat, crumble to nothing more than ashes in the attic. This was momentous for the Elves. This doesn't save their supplies, but they do get revenge. Now that ends turn 6, and...
It's over.
Oh!
Good game, Lance.
A dice roll of 4 tells us the game is over. But who won? Do the Elves recede back into the forests, or do the undead return to Sylvania? The undead scored many wounds, taking many standards and burning down a supply garrison for a total of 857 victory points. The Wood Elves also took many wounds and standards, earning a whopping 1,049 point total. The undead fought hard and held dominance for much of the early battle, but the Elves have extinguished their foul presence from the forests. Alright, that was my favorite battle report I've ever made. Not only just from a fun aspect, like an immersion aspect, I could just imagine myself being on the battlefield watching these zombies drag their undead limbs across the field. But also from a gameplay aspect. The vampire counts really demonstrated how you can handle a dragon when you don't have a conventional answer for a dragon. They just locked him into combat with the Blood Knights there and kept re-challenging him. He has to accept the challenge. Then the dragon can only kill one model per turn, and then they just keep regenerating that model. So even if they can't kill the dragon, they can just hold him in combat while the rest of the battle happens all around him. And it almost worked. I think the Wood Elves were really lucky to get out of combat. So anyway, I freaking loved this battle. Tons of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. One thing I'll never do on this channel is the whole remember to like and subscribe thing. You guys are all adults. You can decide for yourselves whether you want to subscribe or not. But I will ask, if you're okay with it, drop those comments. All the comments I've gotten in the past have continued to guide me in what sort of videos I'm going to create. Let me know what you're enjoying, or if there's particular armies you'd like to see. I've got more friends in the community with more armies. So I hope you enjoyed yourselves. Thanks for watching. Remember to enjoy your hobby, and if you can, play some painted models. Ciao.